Good morning everyone. I will going to read William Congreve The Way of the World. General introduction. William Congreve was born in 1670, 10 years after Charles II stepped ashore in England and became at last, in the eyes of the world, monarch of England. England rejoiced then, relieved to be freed from the stifling pressures of a Puritan government, and welcomed Charles with open arms. The king was received by General Monk with all imaginable love and respect at his entrance upon the land of Dover. The shouting and joy expressed by all is past imagination. Monarchy was thus restored in England, and the years that followed were henceforth to be known as the Restoration Age. It is an age that stretches from 1660 through the reigns of Charles II and his brother James II, beyond the glorious Revolution of 1688 to the end of the reigns of William and Mary 1689 to 1702. Congreve grew to years of maturity during this period and became a true representative of its spirit. On 2 September 1642, the Puritan government had passed an ordinance abolishing all playhouses, and drama had languished in the years that followed. One of the first things that Charles II did in 1660 was to reopen the theatres, and he issued a patent to Thomas Killigrew and Sir William de Avenant, empowering them to erect two companies of players, which subsequently came to be known as the King's Company and the Duke's Company. Restoration drama did not, however, pick up from where the earlier drama had left off. Too much had happened in between the sudden release from Puritan morality and resulted in a wild abandon, sending many to the opposite extreme. Charles II, lately returned from France, set the pace, and the court became notorious for its licentious and gay living. But the spirit of the Commonwealth did not die. Side by side with the court revellers there grew, nurtured by the Puritan values of life, a steady body of middle-class opinion which continued to disapprove of the theatre, stayed away from it, and opposed it as a source of immoral amusement. At the same time, the rabble, which had formerly filled the bids of Elizabethan playhouses, found the new 1 shilling entrance fee too expensive. With these two sections of society largely eliminated, the audience was primarily formed by the aristocratic elite of the king and his courtiers. This leisured and affluent community lived a life of sophisticated elegance, and London, the rapidly developing capital and the hub of England's political, social and cultural life, became the center round which all that was worthwhile revolved. To Harriet in Etheridge's The Man of Mood, there's music in the West Cry in London, and Milliman thinks that rustic is ruder than Gothic. Restoration Committee, therefore, catering to a sophisticated, urbanized community, inevitably lost something of the grassroots University of Elizabethan drama. It would be wrong, however, to draw any sudden conclusions from this. Underneath the gay social fabric of Restoration Society, deep changes were taking place. The 16th century had been an age of wonder and excitement, rather than awareness of the real existence, real significance of the cultural ferment that was shaking Europe, and the Elizabethan, for all his totality of view, tended to direct his eyes upwards to visions of grandeur rather than to the actualities of existence. It was not till the middle of the 17th century that the true meaning of the Renaissance was finally established. Its new philosophy that called all in doubt, its spirit of inquiry, its science, and its skepticism. When Charles II returned to England, the last traces of the Middle Ages had gone, and the new intellectual impulse that had begun with Copernicus and Galileo, and had been strengthened with the empirical philosophy of Francis Bacon, developed into a fundamentally different attitude to life. The 17th century is particularly notable for its many geniuses in the related fields of mathematics, physics, and astronomy, who, by a vast cooperative effort, added stone to stone in this new philosophical structure. Until Newton completed it, Newton published his Philosophic Naturalis Principia Mathematica in 1687, but already in 1651 Thomas Hobbes had affirmed in Leviathan the material nature of the universe. The new age thus turned its gaze from heaven to earth, from implicit faith in the supernatural to rational analysis of empirical facts, from the why to the how of existence, from the glorification of God to the assessment of man. Philosophy had demonstrated the mathematical order lines of the universe. It was now time to see how well man fitted into it. What was the impact of all this on literature? Dryden, the great spokesman of his age, writers, a man should be learned in several sciences and should have a reasonable philosophical and in some measure a mathematical head to be a complete and excellent poet. The emphasis is on a rational and objective as opposed to an emotional approach to life, and the writers of this period turned to prose as the most natural medium of expression. Prose itself changed its nature, and the rhetorical luxuriant prose of the Commonwealth was gradually replaced by a simpler, more direct language. Hobbes in his Leviathan forbids counselors to use obscure, confused and ambiguous expressions, also all metaphorical speeches, tending to the stirring up of passion, and the Royal Society for Improving Natural Knowledge, which was given the Royal Charter in 1662, strengthened this belief. If the rational faculty had become the instrument of the mind and simple prose its medium of expression, the subject matter for contemplation was man's material existence or his immediate environment. In other words, the social milieu in which he lives. The society becomes a major concern of the 17th century writer, and its well-being lay with the well-being of man. The 17th century and the 18th century writer is acutely conscious of his responsibility towards society. He is the guardian of its morality, the upholder of its values. He is committed, and his task is to establish order in human society and teach men and women to live together in a civilized manner. No longer concerned with flights into metaphysics, he has now to bring philosophy out of closets and libraries, schools and colleges, to dwell in clubs and assemblies, at tea tables and in coffee houses. A term that becomes significant in this context is decorum. Decorum in its real significance goes deep. It is the congruity of substance and form, the correct behavior as revealing the correct man. In the corporate social sense, it is the adjustment of human beings to each other, the observance of the norms, rules, proprieties of conduct that every member of a community must subscribe to if his community is to survive. The spirit of rational inquiry and criticism found its voice in satire, and notable examples are Butler's Hudibras, Rochester's satire against mankind, Dryden's Absalom, and Achitophel and Mac Flecknoe, and Defoe's The True-Born Englishman. Quite appropriately, two diarists wrote at this period, Samuel Pepys and John Evelyn, but in many ways the age is best expressed in its comedies. There were the tragedies of Dryden and Otway and Lee, but the satirical bent of the age and the emphasis on social values find a natural expression in the comic spirit that aims at the reconciliation of self and society and the establishment of a balanced way of life. That's it, the introduction of The Way of the World and its background.